Welcome back to Rank and File Sports, where we are grading every single NFL draft class based on three categories. First of all, we're going to grade based off of whether or not the team drafted the players that fit their needs for next season, as well as the overall talent that they got, just assessing the draft class as a whole. And then finally, the value. Is each player worth where they were drafted at? Were they a steal at that position, or did the team maybe reach a little bit and not get as good a value as they could have if they had traded the pick? And then after that, we're going to go ahead and give them an overall grade. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video.
After a very productive offseason, signing Sam Darnold after his best NFL year and getting Cooper Kupp, the Seahawks had 11 draft picks to address the needs of wide receiver, offensive guard, center, offensive tackle, and an edge rusher. And with their first round pick, they took the number one overall offensive guard in Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Honestly, there's nothing to really say about this. If you get the number one overall position player, doesn't matter if it's a little bit of a reach for an overall rank. You got the need. You got your day one starter. Excellent pick for the Seahawks here.
Their second round pick, they took Nick Omanawari, a safety out of South Carolina. This is a great value pick. He was projected late first round, grabbed him here pretty early in the second. Overall, Omanawari is a really talented guy. He got a great vertical, and I think he's going to be a immediate starter on this defense. Really, really strong safety.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the guy's 6'3", 220 pounds and fast and can jump very high. That's a for sure day one starter for the Seahawks defense. Maybe getting back to the Legion of Boom days. But later on in the second round, they took Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, tight end. Doesn't really address a need, but considering that they got Noah Fant in that Russell Wilson deal a couple years ago, and he hasn't really developed to the level that we thought he was capable of. I don't really hate the pick. They got him for pretty decent value, just right around where he was projected to be drafted. So overall, not a terrible pick. Getting some weapons for Sam Darnold to use.
Yeah, and then in the third round, a potential replacement for Sam Darnold in the next few seasons, they took Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. This one was a little bit interesting because I don't think that Milroe was the best quarterback on the board at this point, but I really think that Seattle was just trying to find their next Russell Wilson because they went for basically the exact same dual threat kind of guy. So that's kind of why it makes sense in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was still a pretty good pick if you have the same build and mindset in the player as one of your greatest franchise players. I don't see why you wouldn't draft him. So I think that was a great pick for them. Then they didn't have a pick in the fourth round, but they had an early pick in the fifth round where they took Riley Mills. This one was a little bit of a reach, getting a D tackle out of Notre Dame who was ranked overall 232. Um, didn't address a need, but could help a little bit. I really don't know enough about him, but he is coming off of a ACL injury, so maybe that's why his overall rank in the draft was a little bit lower. So maybe he actually has a lot more potential, but just had those injury concerns. So maybe this could pan out for the Seahawks and getting a steal of a player, but just because it doesn't really meet a need, gonna hurt him a little bit.
They did finally address a need here, though, late in the fifth round, grabbing Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. Very talented wide receiver, great value pick as well, getting a late third round talent in the end of the fifth round. So I think it's going to pan out really well for Seattle. Not quite sure why he fell this far, but I think that he's going to get into the rotation this year, and honestly, he's going to be a good player for Seattle.
Yeah, I think he was coming off an injury last season, so that's why he maybe fell a little bit, but I think it's insane value, and he's going to play alongside Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp next season. I think he's going to have a lot of time to shine. being the third wide receiver up. They had yet another fifth round pick after Torrey Horton, this time taking Robbie Outs, a tight end from Alabama. This one's a little puzzling considering they already took Elijah Arroyo earlier on, and this was definitely a reach. The only real reason I could see them drafting Outs is because he's a bigger blocking tight end, but just because it doesn't address a need and it's at still a pretty valuable spot to get some guys. I don't really think this pick makes a whole lot of sense.
I mean, yeah, he's only caught 11 passes over the last 2 seasons. The only possible explanation I can come up with is they asked Jalen Milroe who he wanted, and he picked his tight end. So other than that, I really don't understand that at all. Sure, he's a good blocker, but there were a lot more players you could have gone for, especially late in the fifth round. The next pick was an offensive tackle, Bryce Cabeldu out of Kansas. Pretty good value. Um, he also could potentially move to offensive guard, so it might not end up addressing the tackle need.
Nice. Yeah, if he makes the move to offensive guard, yeah, it doesn't address the need, but Gray Zabel earlier on has also taken snaps at left and right tackle, so if they feel comfortable with him playing one of the tackle positions to address that need, then you go there. But obviously, since he's the number one overall guard, my guess is they don't end up doing that. Then into the seventh round, they took Damian Martinez, running back out of Miami, pretty good value. I think a couple people said he might be one of the more underrated people in this draft, especially at the running back position. Rushed for 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns in 2 seasons at Oregon State and was a solid contributor at Miami. So I think this is going to be a solid backup at the running back position for the Seahawks, especially with some concerns with their injury history the past few seasons. So overall, really solid pick here.
Yeah, kind of same thing for Mason Richmond. Really solid player. Got not terrible value, mid seventh round talent. Got him in the mid seventh round. Just in case Bellew moves to the offensive guard, they still fill the offensive tackle need. But he's definitely going to be a project, I think. Um, yeah,
Then finally, they took Ricky White III, a wide receiver out of UNLV. He was UNLV's most consistent and best receiver for 3 consecutive seasons, leading them in receiving. He was also the Mountain West Special Teams Player of the Year last season. So definitely gonna find places in this team to make an impact. Might not be on offense right away, but definitely could see him make some plays on special teams. So overall, with it being that late, I don't blame him for taking someone like Ricky White, who has some redeemable aspects.
yeah. So overall, though, I mean, with the 11 picks, the Seahawks only addressed three of their needs. They didn't draft an edge in a really deep edge class, and also did not end up getting a center. We're gonna give them a B minus though. They got an offensive guard, a tackle that could potentially play guard, two receivers that I really like. So in the end, it's going to be a B minus. Not terrible, but definitely could have been better, especially with this many picks. Talent wise, it's going to be a B. Um, Zabel, they reached on a little bit. He's still, I mean, first round talent, pretty much. Amanda Warrior's first round talent. Arroyo, almost first round talent. So they have a lot of talented guys in here. Um, I wouldn't say anybody especially crazy later in the rounds. I like Martinez and Ricky White, but still, in the end, it's going to be a B for the talent grade. And then B plus value. They didn't really reach that bad on anybody. Um, so I don't think that it's a terrible draft class in that sense. The outs pick is really what's hurting this one, as well as Riley Mills a little bit. Other than that, really solid draft class. Gonna give it a B overall.
Yeah, I think getting the number one positional players at 2 different positions is outstanding for the Seahawks. I think getting Jalen Milroe for the future, like you were saying, that Russell Wilson build, I think is going to be great for them too. And they're loading up on weapons as well, getting Torrey Horton and Elijah Arroyo. I think this is a very, very great draft class for the Seahawks, considering that they need to make that leap forward next season to overtake the Rams before the Rams get all their young guys to develop. So, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of our videos, and we will see you in the next one.